Very good morning to parents, students, and my dear teachers. Today, me, Navpreet Patel, HOD Psychology from BCM Arya Model Senior Secondary School, would be sharing with you the National Education Policy 2020, which was approved by Union Cabinet of Ministers on 29th January 2020. It outlines the vision of India's new education system. The new policy replaces the previous National Policy on Education 1986. The policy is a comprehensive framework for elementary education to higher education, as well as vocational training in both rural and urban areas. This policy aims to transform India's education system by 2021. CBSE has developed a comprehensive framework termed as School Quality Assessment and Assurance (SQAA). The disclosure will be at the school level based on proficiency of school, technical documentation, standardization has been prepared. E-portal for school is being prepared, and by the year 2021-22, a final rolled out in the year of 2023. And how the National Education Policy 2020 will be implemented in the CBSE school. There is a vision of this policy. According to this vision, we have to develop an education system based deeply rooted in Indians' ethos, which has the capacity to provide high quality education to compete in the global market. The curriculum and the pedagogy must develop a sense of respect towards fundamental duties and Constitution of India and have a deep bond with the country. It develops a sense of pride and respect for the country and be responsible for human rights, sustainable development, global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. There are certain principles which I would like to share with you. These principles are respect for diversity and the local content. We are basically concerned about equity and inclusion, plus community participation to encourage community to be a part of education, the use of technology in teaching and learning. And we have to remove the language barriers for the students as well as people who are teaching them. There is lots of emphasis on conceptual understanding, and there is a recognition system to identify unique capabilities of students. Critical thinking and creativity is encouraged, and there is a continuous review based on the each regularities meant by the educational experts. When we talk about the transforming curriculum and pedagogical structures, there is the new pedagogical and curricular structures for school education, which is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. That means 3 years in Anganwadi, preschool, and 12 years in the school. If you talk about stages, at this secondary stage, there is a greater critical thinking, multidisciplinary study, and there is a flexibility and student choice of the subject. They can choose any subject. There is no bifurcation. Like a child who is studying physics can opt for fine arts and physical education along with. The middle stage is a experiential learning in the sciences, mathematics, art, social science, and humanities, where you're talking about the preparatory stage, which is play, discovery, and activity based. There is going to be an interactive classroom learning. When you talk about the basic foundational stage, it is multi-language, multi-level play, activity-based learning. There is a shift to contemporary-based teaching, learning, and assessment. The emphasis is on reducing curriculum to cross essentials to minimize rote learning. When we minimize rote learning, we would be emphasizing more on promoting critical and creative thinking, which is aligned to the 21st century in the classroom. There would definitely be a shift in the traditional assessment to the contemporary focused assessment, We need to track the students' progress comprehensively and frequently. There would be more than one final exams. They would be tested at 2 stages, 3 stages, whereas their continuous effort would be recognized. The design tools and the resources to acquire learning outcome, we have to promote sport integrated and art integrated learning in the classroom for holistic development. The salient features of the stages in the school are basically divided into four, which I already discussed with you: foundational stage, preparatory stage, middle stage, and high school, which is secondary stage. In the foundational stage, there would be play activity based learning. Early childhood care and education, they would be focused on good behavior, curiosity, ethics, personal and public hygiene, and things like cleanliness. Whereas when we come to the preparatory stage, there would be more play-based learning to more formal classroom learning. There would be interactive teacher learning. Introductions of subject includes physical education, art, languages, science and mathematics. There would be emphasis on reading, writing and speaking. And when you talk in detail about the middle stage, there would be subject-oriented curricular methodology. The subject teachers for learning discussions of more abstract concept in each subjects will take place. When you come to the higher or a secondary stage, 4 years of multidisciplinary studies will be there, which would be much more in a deeper understanding, greater critical thinking. There would be more attention to life aspirations. There would be much more flexibility in choosing the subjects from the students' end. Exposure would be given to the more subjects and ensure greater flexibility, and definitely there would be more frequent assessment of the modules. Thereafter, we talk about attainment of foundational literacy and numeracy by the grade 3 is a basic mission mode. There would be a book promotion and there would be national book promotion policy would be formulated. With public and school libraries will be expanded. National mission on foundation literacy and numeracy. Early learning focuses on early reading and writing. This is what we already discussed, but then in details there would be much more expansion and exposure for the students for learning. And when you're talking about one basic problem that we always faced in our country is the dropout rates, and that has to be ensured, and universal access to education at all levels to bring children back to the school and prevent children dropping out. The following subjects have been taken in the NEP 2020 to provide regular trained teachers at each stage. Special care shall be taken to ensure that no school remains deficient on infrastructure support. There is a universal participation in the schools by carefully tracking students as well as their learning levels in order to ensure that there are enrollments in and attending school, and there is a suitable opportunity to catch up or re-enter the school in case they have fallen behind or dropped out. This is something very wise which we have considered in this NEP 2020, where the students can rejoin and continue their education. Community partnership in terms of expertise and infrastructural support is also given. When you're talking about highlights of the pedagogical structures, there is a contemporary based education, integration of subjects, there is a development of scientific temper, and then there are different learning emphasis on digital literacy and the multilingual teaching. This is one aspect which has been taken care of, that every child can learn in their mother tongue. There is an introduction of contemporary subjects like artificial intelligence, holistic health, data science, organic living, design thinking, and mechanic learning. There are years-long course during grade 6 and 8. The survey and hand-on experiences of sampling of important vocational crafts which is inculcated in the learnings of students, such as carpentry, electrical work, metal work, gardening, pottery making, etc. and they are decided by the states and local communities and as mapped by the local skill needed. So according to that, these skills will be developed in the students. When it comes to mathematical and conceptual thinking, there is increased emphasis throughout the school years, starting with the foundational level. The use of innovative methods, including the regular use of puzzles, games, and make mathematical thinking more enjoyable and engaging. There is also introduction of activities involving coding in the middle stage, which was earlier not there. There is lots of emphasis on vocational education, and the highlight of NEP, one of the point which is appreciated, is 10-day bagless period during grade 6 and 8 for students to intern with local vocational experts. Examples are carpenters, gardeners, and potters, artists are there. Internship opportunities to learn vocational subjects throughout grade 6 to 12. Vocational courses through online mode, periodic exposure to activities outside school through like meeting local artists and craftsmen. There are vocational courses to be offered through open and distant learning also. By 2025, at least 50% of the learners shall have exposure to vocational education. There is lots of emphasis in giving the knowledge regarding constitutional values, knowledge of critical issues in the local communities, knowledge of India. Indian knowledge system, including tribal knowledge, indigenous and traditional ways of learning. So these are the things which are incorporated so that students can know their culture and root. When it comes to health education, basic training in health, including preventive health, mental health and well-being, nutrition, personal and public hygiene, first aid, their damaging effects of alcohol, drug abuse, tobacco, this all would be imparted for the students. There is this multilingualism issue which has been catered to. Children whose primary language is not the language of instruction in the school, they are more likely to drop out from the school or fail in the early grades. So to take care of this thing, mother tongue or home language, local languages is used as a medium of instruction whenever possible until at least grade 5 and preferably till the grade 8. The languages of India are fun project activity in schools to familiarize with the diversity of language in the country. National Curriculum Framework for School Education NCFSE and its textbooks, their formulation of new and comprehensive national curriculum framework based on the principle of this National Education Policy 2020 and will be made available to all regional language. All textbooks shall aim to contain the essential core material deemed importance on the national level. Where possible, schools and teachers will also have to have choices in the textbook they employ. For example, a set of textbook that contains the requisite national and local material. Transforming assessment for students' development, the main aim of the assessment is shift from rote memory and the skills to formative and more contemporary assessment. To promote learning and development of students, we test higher order skills HOT such as analysis, critical thinking and conceptual clarity. Assessment for learning to optimize learning and development of all students. This will be the underlying principle for assessment at all levels of education. When it comes to transforming assessment and tracking students' progress across the years, they would be grade wise from grade 3 to grade 5 and 8, grade 10 to grade 12. And when you're coming to the grade 3, there is a test of core concepts. And then 5 to 8, there would be a conduct of assessment for the schools, be it government or private school. And then 8 to grade 10 student data is, there's a disclosure by the schools. Overall outcomes will be taken care of and use of data for continuous monitoring and improvement. When it comes to the report cards, there is a redesigning of report cards to assess the holistic development of each child. And that is what we say 360-degree holistic report cards. What we mean by this is the holistic progress cards will form an important link between home and school and will be accompanied by parent-teacher meeting in order to actively involve parents and their children's holistic education and development. The results of school examination to be used only for the developmental purposes of the school education, for public disclosure by the school of their overall students' outcome, and then for continuous monitoring and improvement of the school system. So there would be more progress in project based and inquiry based learning. There would be more interactive things like quiz, role play, group work, portfolio, etc. Self assessment and peer assessment will be considered. Progress in cognitive, affective and psychomotor domains. Affective here is basically emotional. Interactive questionnaires for parents, teachers and students, and thereafter followed by teachers' assessment. So it would not be only one-way assessment, it would be a two-way assessment. Regarding the guidelines of assessment will be prepared by NCERT in consultation with the major stakeholders such as boards of assessment, National Assessment Center for School Education, and transformation in assessment system by 2022 and 23 academic session to align with National Curriculum Framework for School Education 2020 and 2021. National Assessment Center for School Education. The center will advise the school and boards regarding new assessment patterns, latest research, for promoting collaboration between the school boards and to become an instrument for sharing the best practices between school boards about shifting their assessment patterns toward meeting the skill requirements of the 21st century in consonance with the stated objective of this policy. When it comes to teachers and teachers education, NEP-2 4-year integrated B.Ed is there, 2 years B.Ed is again for applicants with an exiting bachelor's degree and other specialized subjects. Teachers training will be more competent to meet the demands of the students when it comes to NEP 2020. It aims to support and nurture teachers through all phases in their tenure, that is from the preparation stage to the recruitment stage, in the classroom, in the professional development too. CDP, which is continuous professional development and improving the standards. Teacher education to include aspects of supporting gifted children, which is really important, training teachers to be effective online educators, which is a need of the hour again, workshops and training programs for development of school leaders and participants. A new and comprehensive national curriculum framework for teachers education 2021 will be formulated. National professional teacher standards to set benchmark for expectations of the role of teachers, standards of performance appraisal, and inform the design of pre-service education. Equitable and inclusion in education. Education is the single greatest tool for achieving social justice and equality. NEP seeks to bridge gender and social category gaps in all levels of school education. Inclusive, good quality education is the foundation for dynamic and equitable societies. There is lots of focus on socially, economically underprivileged or disadvantaged group. It's called as SEDGs, focus on socially, economically disadvantages. Gender identities, socio-cultural identities, for example, OBCs, minorities, geographical identities such as students from the villages, from the far off places, disabilities including learning disabilities and socio-economical conditions, for example, migrant workers and low-income households. Efficient resources and effective governance through school complexes and clusters, adequate number of counselors, trained social workers and teachers for teaching all subjects including art, music, science, sports, languages and vocational subjects. There are adequate resources such as libraries, science labs, computer labs, skill labs, playgrounds, which has to be developed in all these schools. A sense of community is built to overcome the isolation of teacher, student and school through joint professional development programs, sharing of teacher learning content, joint content development, holding joint activities such as art and science exhibitions, cooperation and support across the schools for education for children and disabilities. So these are the basic initiatives which have been taken by NEP and CBSE especially to implement National Education Policy 2020 in the schools, and there are certain expectations from the schools to focus on core essential learning outcomes, focus on practical and application based learning, and to stress on the importance of foundational skills of literacy and numeracy, which is there in the NEP. And then we need to adapt our infrastructure and teachings and learning according to the changing demands of the society, and to engage with parents and community for the positive learning outcomes. So these were the few points regarding NEP 2020 which I wanted to discuss with you. Thank you very much for patient listening.